Well, from all that we saw on television, there was a great sense of national respect shown for her. Sometimes it was grief, sometimes more in the direction of respect. But a sense of national unity at this moment was very dramatic, I thought. And who knows how long that's going to last. You know, the Scots voted on independence a few years ago, and they turned it down, but it was a close vote. Will the United Kingdom remain disunited in the future? Well, I think I can say with a lot of confidence that the Scots are headed at some point toward another vote on independence. And so if she was responsible for holding the United Kingdom together, the question now becomes, can Charles do the same thing? Some members of the Commonwealth still recognize the British monarch, and in our time it's been Queen Elizabeth, as the head of state. I think there are about 15 countries that recognized her as as head of state. Will that be the case with Charles? Barbados, I think, was the most recent departure from that lineup of countries recognizing the Queen as their head of state officially. I mean, that didn't have any impact on how those countries conducted themselves in terms of domestic policy or foreign policy. But it's possible that with a new monarch in Britain that you may see more departures from keeping the English sovereign as their official head of state. Well, he conducted himself very well through all the funeral services and immediately went to Wales and Northern Ireland. He started out with the ceremonies in Scotland, and then there was the 10-day stretch in London before the end of the funeral. His speech to Parliament in Westminster Hall was quite impressive. I mean, his pledge to pretty much conduct himself in the style of his mother was something that the press responded well to. He got through this quite well. When you think about the English press, the tabloids are in an age when print media is diminishing in so many instances. The English tabloids keep selling because of the sensationalism that they print, and because they love to get dirt on the royal family if they can. Well, all through the ceremonies for the Queen, the tabloids behaved themselves better than usual. And so he started out with good press coverage. Will he remain this popular? I don't know. He has to prove himself in a sense. I think next spring. I think the coronation is likely to happen in June. The English never rush to a coronation. I mean, they'll shout, "God save the King," right away. But you saw how meticulous the funeral ceremonies were in every instance. They were, as one reporter said, carefully choreographed, and they will want to do the same thing with the preparations for the coronation. That's really an interesting question, isn't it? Because you'd think that Americans who revolted against the British monarchy, had all sorts of bad things to say about George III, wouldn't be fond of the English monarchy, but nevertheless, people trek over there to line up to see the sovereign at Trooping the Color in June of every year, or just the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. Americans and people throughout the United Kingdom and in Europe as well are kind of fascinated by this last remaining major European monarchy. You know, when Victoria's son, Edward VII, died in 1910. The monarchs of Europe showed up for the funeral. It was a very, very big event. But by the time World War I was over, the British monarchy was the only one left standing. And so it has continued to be, I don't want to say a sort of, magical fantasy or something like that, but it has a kind of charm and splendor about it ceremonially. The Brits do ceremony better than anybody in the world, except maybe for the Vatican. And so you have this pageantry that people love. If you think of the images of the mall with the funeral procession coming down the mall, all those big flags along the mall, and the masked bands and pipers and all of that, it all adds to the kind of splendor of English ceremonial pageantry. And people are, I would say, more than entertained by that. A lot of people are awed by that. She's no stranger to Westminster. She has been Chancellor, and so you might say she's a political insider. She would like to separate herself from the image of the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher, but in fact, in many ways, she's rather like Margaret Thatcher. She also isn't afraid to change her mind on things. She was an opponent of Brexit, and then she flipped and became a strong supporter of Brexit. So I think you might say she's a woman with her own mind. She's not going to be, I think, driven by party insiders or necessarily kowtowing to the other front benchers. Elizabeth seemed to be a source of stability in the United Kingdom. When there are things like Brexit tearing the country apart, the Queen was nevertheless not up to her elbows in that debate. She was regularly very discreet, but every week the Prime Minister meets with the Sovereign to go over the major questions facing the country at the moment. The Prime Minister isn't bound by what the Queen thinks, but they do have, now the King, an ongoing relationship of frankness in private. Now, in terms of the public appearances of the monarchy, they do a lot of charitable work. The royal family does a lot of charitable work. And the country is willing to accept the cost of the monarchy, maintaining these royal houses like Windsor Castle or Buckingham Palace, which really are the property of the royal family, but they could never sell it off. Other properties like Sandringham in Norfolk or Balmoral up in Scotland are owned by the royal family, and they are places of retreat, you might say, where they can be private for an extended period, usually Christmas at Sandringham and the summertime up in Scotland. And what purpose does the monarchy have in the 21st century? Well, I think to continue to be a kind of rallying point for the people who identify as British. And will the country be eager to entertain the idea of becoming a republic? I don't see that happening at any time in the immediate future.